What's up, Gould Miners? Today we welcome Sam Primm to the show.
So that's the thing. Passive income's kind of like a myth. It's not a real thing because you're always active at some degree. So I own everything 50-50. I have a business partner that owns the other 50%. I own 50%. If I wanted to own it all myself and control over everything, it would never be passive. We're cash flowing 40 to 50 grand a month on 50 million in real estate. That's okay. But in general, we could cash flow a lot more. Most of the time there's some level of involvement, and this still doesn't mean you don't do it. Even if it's 10 hours a week, still buy rentals. Good Lord. That's how you create wealth.
Sam is an incredibly experienced real estate investor, entrepreneur, educator, and now social media icon. Over the last 10 years, Sam has 1,000 houses flipped, 150 single-family homes owned, 6 apartment buildings, 3 storage facilities, and 1 hotel. Needless to say, Sam is the real deal, and in this episode, we cover a wide gambit of topics, starting with the journey and the lessons that he learned in doing over 1,000 flips over the last 10 years. Later on in the episode, we explore the idea of mentorship and paid education, especially now in the modern era, and how paying for experience and proven processes can help expedite and shorten your path to success. We also spent some time talking about his corporate structure, how he delegates his hiring processes. We go really in depth in this podcast, and there's definitely something in this podcast, whether you are a brand new investor or a super seasoned investor. And finally, we end the episode by talking about some of the trends that he sees happening in real estate currently that will affect the market for the next 5 to 10 years, including his thoughts on midterm rentals. That's right, not long-term rentals, not short-term rentals, but midterm rentals, and how he sees this as a golden opportunity over the next decade. Again, so much wisdom, so much knowledge in this episode, and I can't wait for all of you to listen this knowledge-packed episode. So without further ado, everyone, let's welcome to the show, Sam Primm. Sam, welcome to the Gould Mine.
I'm excited to be here, my man.
Dude, this is great. Obviously been following you for a little while here, and I know your story, but for the audience, just a SparkNotes version of Sam's real estate investing journey went from zero to a $25 million portfolio in just 18 months. How'd you do that?
It's one of those things where we bought 25 million in real estate in 18 months. So yep. I got 50 million in real estate. So I think that's part of the story is, it doesn't happen overnight. We were able to get quick growth. We took advantage of the low interest rate environment right before interest rates popped off and, high cost and, or high value environment. So there, right before interest rates went off like crazy, we were able to add that 25 million in real estate. And it's because 7 years prior, I had been doing things and building relationships and doing loans and talking to lenders and talking to contractors and brokers. So it was one of those things that was kind of like a culmination of several years of work, because a lot of people think, well, no one's going to give me millions of dollars of loans. Well, not me either. Like, it starts out with a $100,000 loan, and then a $200,000 loan, and then another $100,000 loan, then a $500,000 loan. So it's one of those things you build over time. So it definitely didn't happen overnight. But what you're referring to is, was able to add 25 million there in about a year and a half there before interest rates kind of dipped and we took a little break buy-in. But it was a culmination of a lot of things.
So what you're saying is that it didn't happen overnight, Sam?
It happened over 2 nights.
Yeah. Well, and that's funny, right? Because obviously you see that's the headline, right? That's kind of like the attention grabbing headline. But what you just alluded to, I think, is the fact that most people tend to avoid when talking about anyone's success is the years of work that happened before then to get to that point. Because even though maybe you weren't in investing, you were doing other things that were building that foundation for you, whether or not it was directly in that field. So let's talk about what you were doing before you got serious about investing. What was that like?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2011 and was doing the job thing, all the fun W-2 corporate stuff. And then 2013-ish, I liked my job okay, but I wanted to explore some other things. So me and a buddy started investing in real estate on the side in 2014. And we started out with 1 single family rental in 2014-15 timeframe. Then started to build upon that, build our skills, learn a lot of things. And by 2018, we quit our jobs and went all in on real estate. So then from 2018 till now, it's been a majority, 95% of the 50 million in real estate that I own probably has been over the past, 7 years-ish, 6-7 years. But it started, slowly with a full-time job like most people do for the first few years.
That's awesome. And you were kind of doing it on the side with the buddy and everything. Then you really got serious about it. I'm wondering, in the time that you were, I wouldn't say like half in, half out, but like in the time that you were building, right? Like not like doing it full time. What were the 2 to 3 pivotal things that happened in that time frame that you think built that foundation for you? Because there had to have been a couple of things that happened in that time frame that built that foundation for you.
Yeah, I think it was a couple different things. One of it was gaining confidence. We had been doing, like I said, from like basically 2015, 2018. So 3 years on the side. So a couple of things, kind of opposite directions too. One of them was building confidence. We had bought a decent amount of real estate, done some flips, done some wholesales, and started to have the confidence that we could do this and maybe quit our jobs and lose the security of a job and bet all on yourself. So I had the confidence being built up. But then I had a boat anchor, the job at the same time, right? So I had the confidence, and then I saw what I was able to do in 10, 15 hours a week. What if I had 70 hours a week to spend on this? Like, can this extrapolate times 5? Just simple math, time in, output out. So there was that side of it, the confidence, and then like the what ifs of like the boat anchor kind of being the job being like, what could I do if I had more time? And then finally, I think it was, we screwed up several times, and we're able to like navigate and figure it out and not lose our butts and, be able to, take collateral off one property because we lost it on this one, or, had profits built into one deal, we lost on another one. So we were able to kind of get like a home runs and, strikeouts all in the same time and still remain afloat. So I think we just had, screwed up enough that we're like, all right, we feel like we're confident, comfortable enough that let's take our family livelihoods and depend on ourselves, not on somebody else.
I love that. And what was your boat anchor? What was that 9 to 5 for you?
I was in sales, so I had a little bit of experience, but selling Caterpillar construction equipment is what I was doing. So I was in sales, traveling a little bit, not a ton, but just not able to be around like, where I was investing as much.
I want to come back to that because I think at some point we're going to kind of get into what you're doing now and, raise capital, all that good stuff. And then how sales is kind of tied into that, but we'll get into that in a second. Love that. You started off using the BRRRR method primarily, correct? You were doing...
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And for those that might not be familiar with it, BRRRR stands for...
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and scale. Not repeat. I changed it to scale. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and scale.
Love it. And scale. And we're using that primarily for single families to start with. What was the buy box at the beginning, right? Like, what were you looking for? What was the typical deal look like?
At the very beginning, we were looking for houses to flip to put 20% down on rentals because I didn't know about the BRRRR method when I got started. So I tell most people, like, after they listen to this podcast, they're going to know more than I knew when I bought my very first rental property. Yeah. But my goal was to buy a house, flip it, take the profit, and put 20% down. That's what I thought you had to do. And then during the first property, the rehab actually found out about the BRRRR's method and the refinance and was able to keep that property, and I still own it today. But typically the buy box was in St. Louis at the time was houses with an ARV between probably like $100,000 and $200,000. Was able to get obviously less than that and buy at discounts, but 100 to 200K ARVs and property their cash flow, $300-400 a month after all expenses kind of thing was the typical buy box for rental properties. Now, we ran into other properties that didn't fit that buy box that we would, wholesale or flip and try to make profit on. Cause that was one of the bigger mistakes we made at the beginning was trying to replace our W-2 income with rental income. And if you buy rentals with the BRRRR method and you don't cash flow a ton, that's an uphill battle that's not likely to be won within a decade or two. So we quickly figured out you had to have active income and passive income at the same time. Yep. That's when we started rolling in, flips and wholesales to replace the active income.
Gotcha. So we started with BRRRR. That's actually very interesting, right? Because I feel like a lot of people start with wholesaling and then they graduate into flipping. Right. And then they're like, wait, hold on a second. This is such a transactional business and I'm not building any like long-term wealth. Let me get into BRRRRing and like, buying holdings. So you actually did it in reverse, which is actually fascinating. Any advantages that you see to doing it that way as opposed to the other way?
I mean, the first house we bought, 10 years ago now, about not quite, it's got 160,000 in equity in one house that we bought using none of our own money. So there's that part of it, right? The actual numbers of starting earlier, because real estate doubles in value every 15 years. So the earlier you buy it, the earlier you're going to double.
Yep.
Your values. So there's that side of it. And then I think just like learning the relationships, like I feel like taking it, using somebody else's money, fixing it up, getting a bank refinance, that's way harder than wholesaling or flipping. So I feel like I got the hard part over with.
Yes.
And flips and wholesales seem pretty easy at that point, right? It's like, no, I don't even have to close on this thing and I can make 15, 20 grand, or I'm rehabbed it and I can, try to do cash out refinance, or I can make 60 grand and keep it and sell it kind of thing rather than keep it. So I think the advantage was I did the harder thing first and the other things seemed easier. But again, the disadvantage was we were idiots and tried to replace our income with $200 a month rental property. So it took us a couple of years to realize that, but then we did, and then we kind of went all in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's fascinating because I think a lot of people get sold this idea of passive income. Right?
Uh-huh.
They get sold the idea of passive income, and you've been able to achieve that now. I believe the number was somewhere around like 40,000 right a month that you've now collect passively.
From my rental portfolio. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's over 150 single families, 6 apartments, 3 storage units, and a hotel.
Yep. So so that's the thing. Passive income's kind of like a myth. It's not a real thing because you're always active in some degree, unless you do what I did and it's truly passive, but you give up profit and you give up equity, or you give up, cash flow. Like if I wanted to own everything, so I own everything 50-50. I have a business partner that owns the other 50%. I own 50%. I wanted to own it all myself and, have control over everything. It would never be passive, but I haven't been to a rental company meeting in 18 months. So it's passive. I don't even know when I buy rental properties anymore.
Oh, wow.
So it is truly passive to me, but we're cash flowing 40 to 50 grand a month on 50 million in real estate. That's okay. That's not super 50 grand a month's a lot of money, right? But 50 million in real estate versus that, people are like, that doesn't even make sense. That you think you'd be cash flowing, 600 grand a month or 5, they have no idea.
Yeah.
But in general, we could cash flow a lot more, but we have a team. We have an in-house property management team we pay. We have a COO that runs that company. We have office rent that we have a nice office in. We're growing and scaling. We use none of our own money. So when you do that, when you use none of your own money and you grow and scale, you do sacrifice cash flow. And if you're not involved at all, you're going to sacrifice cash flow. We pay our COO of our property management company 110 grand a year. Lucas and I could try to piece that together and get more cash flow, but we're not worried about the cash flow. It's more about the appreciation, the debt pay down, and the tax benefits. So it is truly passive for me, but that is pretty rare. Most of the time there's some level of involvement, and this still doesn't mean you don't do it. I'm not, even if it's 10 hours a week, still buy rentals. Good Lord. That's how you create wealth, but it's actually passive, which is a little bit rare.
Well, it's interesting because, so in a previous life, I was a realtor and, grew up a real estate team and one of the pillars of my business was helping real estate investors. And Silicon Valley, Bay Area, first of all, buying rental property here is really stupid. Really, really dumb. You're not cash flowing. You're in the red. There are some people who timed it well, kind of earlier on, coming out of the recovery. They made millions of dollars, but especially right now, it's there's no such thing as a real investment property here in the Bay Area. But I always got people that came and said, I want to invest, right? But then they didn't want to hire a property management company. They didn't want to even hire a handyman. They're like, oh no, I took care of it and I did this and that. And then, I had to go clean or beat the plumber one day. And I'm like, dude, what do you do? You just bought yourself another job. Right. So it sounds to me like you did everything backwards, but the right way, right? It's okay, I built it from the top down, not the bottom, but built from top down, bottom up. Who talked about this? Someone else, Hermosi talked about this recently where he's hey, 2 ways to do it, either from the top down, bottom up. Elon did it top down, started with the Rolls-Royce vehicle, then built his way down, as opposed to bottom up. And as a result, you were able to buy your time back over time. And now you've built this awesome business, right? Now it truly is a business. You're actively still involved, but not to the point where if you left for 2 weeks, it couldn't run without you. I'm assuming that that's what you mean, right? You could go to Barbados tomorrow and it would run. pretty much without you.
Oh, one of my companies, yeah. So I have three of them. My rental company could run without me ever being here again. Like I said, I haven't been to a rental. So we manage our own assets. So we have an in-house property management team that manages our assets. And I haven't been to a Midwest Property Group, that company. I haven't been to a Midwest Property Group weekly meeting in 18 months, maybe almost 2 years now. So
Wow.
The last 50 single family houses I bought, I couldn't tell you the addresses, the numbers, anything. So that business is truly passive and I don't have any involvement at all in that business. If we're buying an apartment complex, maybe I'll come in and help negotiate or raise the money. And that's kind of rare these days because the cost of money right now. So we haven't really been buying much besides single families recently. So yeah, I'm not involved at all. Now, I'm very involved in the education business. And then the flipping business, I'm a little bit involved in, but my time split's probably 90% education, 10% flipping, and 0% rental portfolio. So yeah, it's a real company that runs without me, and I'm happy for that.
Now, when you say education business, let's talk about that real quick. You are educating other real estate investors, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And it's called Freedom Network.
Faster Freedom. Yep.
Faster Freedom. Sorry. Faster Freedom. Where did I get that from? Faster Freedom. So Faster Freedom, let's talk about that for a second, Sam. So like what does Faster Freedom do? What does the structure look like? And what can someone expect if they come and like say, hey, I'd like to join sort of thing?
Yeah. So Faster Freedom started just kind of as online education via social media. In 2019, I remember specifically seeing a lot of people starting to get in the education space that had done like 5 BRRRRs and they wrote a BRRRR book or had like done 4 flips and has one Airbnb and they do an Airbnb masterclass on a weekend. I'm like, I mean, at that point I had probably 25 million in real estate and had done probably 500 flips. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm qualified to teach people, but I sure as shit know you're not qualified to teach people.
Yeah.
So then I started to post a little bit about on my personal Facebook. And people like went bananas about it, like high school buddies, college buddies, friends. I didn't know you're doing all this because we didn't talk about it, right? So I was like, holy crap, people like this. So then in 2020, summerish 2020, I started posting on social media, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and started to just, after a few months, started to like, holy crap, the eyeballs for somebody teaching something that they're actually doing is like earth-shatteringly crazy to people because all these fake gurus or people flexing from cars or Rolls Royces, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was actually doing it. We buy 200 houses a year. I was adding rentals like crazy. We were screwing up. We were doing well, all these things. And I just talked about what we did. And that was like a brand new concept for social media, somebody authentically talking about what they actually do. And that's how I've gotten 3 million followers on social media, which is the top of the funnel, just by talking about doing what I do. Like I'm not like super well spoken, like, goodness gracious, if I had Hormozy's articulation skills, that would be crazy. Or like a cool voice, or I mumble and I slur and I talk too fast. Like I'm like the opposite of what you would think, but I have 3 freaking million followers because all organic, none of them bought, none of them paid for, because I just talk about what I do and I'm authentic about it and I'm not buttoned up and people like that.
Yeah.
So it started there, kind of grew that. And then as I got more eyeballs, more people were like, hey, I want you to teach me and coach me. So of course, like 2021, we launched like a 10-week program. It did okay, tried a few different things. But then about 2022, we got our current like community mentorship figured out after like 3 or 4 iterations. And that's what we stuck with for about 2 years now. We got 1,700 students now, all students in all 50 states, over 200 million owned by our students all in the past couple of years. So we've really hit it pretty well because the deliverables and what they get for being involved. So I give I don't know if I can cuss. I give a crap ton away for free via social media, via, trainings and things like that. And then, if they want their handheld, they want the community, they want my big pitch, if you want to call it a pitch, is I've done over 1,000 flips and wholesales. I own 50 million in real estate. I've screwed up a ton. So I have systems, processes, checklists, SOPs, everything around it. Like I can give you my system to start from scratch. So you can follow a system. I always use the analogy of Chick-fil-A. People get Chick-fil-A franchises because of their systems. Chick-fil-A is so well done that high schoolers run Chick-fil-A's because their systems of when to do it, where to do it, what to say at the drive-through, how to direct traffic, when to open up a second lane, where to make the food, when to bring it in. It's like literally you buy it and you're golden.
Yeah.
And you can have a high schooler run it. That's what my systems are. You can try to figure it out on your own and open up a chick joint next to it by leasing space at a strip center, or you can take systems and use them. So which one do you think is more profitable and quicker and less frustrating? So that's kind of my whole spiel is I have the systems. I'm continuing to do it. I'm screwing up all the time. Let me show you the systems. Let me hold your hand with the coaches and let me give you the proven processes for the path of least resistance to wealth. Pretty captivating pitch. Like you're going to still have to roll up your sleeves and work hard. Yep. You're still going to screw up, but we're there for you. We'll keep your momentum going. We won't let one screw up add to 2 to 3 to 4 till you're done. We'll let one screw up add to a fix and then we'll grow again. So that's my whole thing. And that's why never thought I'd be on TikTok. Never thought I'd have 2 million followers there. Never thought I'd have, 15, 20 million views a month on social media. Never thought I'd have 1,700 students, but it's all came from me talking about what I'm actually doing on a day-to-day basis. And so anyways, there's a long ass answer for your question, but in general, it's really cool. It's what I spend most of my time on. I'm super passionate about it because it's helping people. It's another stream of income for me. And I feel like I'm just getting started on like where I could take that and the things I could do. I don't syndicate. I don't raise funds. I don't get deals from it. I think I can do that in the future, but right now we're just providing value and picking up the people that want their hands held.
That's awesome, man. And you know what? In life, you're going to pay for things. You're either going to pay for it through time and experience, or you're going to pay with it with dollars, right? And
yep.
I believe in mentorship so much, man. And good for you. Like I'm really happy to hear that like you figured, because like I know exactly what you mean. The more that you know, the more you realize how like inept you really are. And so it doesn't surprise me that you felt like, dude, I've done fucking 500 flips and this guy is done like 4 and like you felt super unqualified, but it's really funny because like I feel like the most qualified people are the ones that feel like the least qualified, and so
yeah. To be successful, I feel like you have to have like some sense of awareness kind of to a certain degree and have some perspective. And I see a waving and there's, and I mean, I spend 150 grand a year on masterminds and education programs and teaching and coaching. So it is something the industry does have an icky feel to it kind of because of certain people in the industry.
Yeah.
And, there's hundreds of courses and mentorships out there. There's about 10 good ones. But no, I used to like, I put my money where my mouth is. Like I said, 150 grand a month, or not a month, a year that I spend on being around people that are bigger, better, and more successful than me.
Yep.
And then just happened twice now, spend 20 grand a year, get in a room, like kind of nervous and shy and looking around and build yourself up and build a reputation. Now you're kind of the top guy in the room. What do? I leave that room and pay more money to be in a bigger room and be the small person in the room. So I'm willing to do that. And I used to like shy away from like having a course because of all the fake gurus and scamming comments I would get.
Yeah.
But now I'm proud of it. It's an incredible course. It's a $10,000 course that teaches people how to become multimillionaires efficiently. Like I'm happy about it. People that get involved that take action are like, I would have paid 5 times this, or I've got 10 times the value. So it's not something I shy away from anymore, but I did for a while because of the stigma of the space, but that's all right. Everybody has their own path.
Well, and you said something right there that is so true that a lot of people overlook. It's like, all right, assuming, and this is a big assumption, and the sad truth is that right now with the internet, I would say that like a good portion, I don't know if the majority, but a good portion of the online education out there is garbage. But
yes,
if you find someone,
portion.
If you find someone like Sam, who's done it, who has the proven processes, who has the track record, can help you avoid crap load of mistakes along the way. You're still going to make mistakes, by the way. Like it's not going to like that.
Oh yeah.
You're still going to mess up. The only thing keeping you from reaching levels of success like Sam is yourself, meaning your lack of action and implementation. Right. And so you just hit it on the head right there, because of the 1,700 students that you have, I would wager that less than 150 of them actually implement what you've told them to do. Because it's just like, there's just so many people that like will buy in, and it's like entertainment for them, but then they actually won't implement the steps. And maybe it's more than that, right? I'm just saying, but like like just from a sheer percentages, like you have 100 people and then like maybe 10 people will take action on that stuff. But like, that's who the education is for. It's like, it's for those 10 people. Because they're the ones that are actually going to do the things that are required and that are necessary to win. Right. And like,
you're 100% right. Yeah. I feel like we are very intentional with our onboarding, and we have a call every day. We have accountability calls. We have follow-up calls, check-ins.
wow.
So I feel like we're the best out there, and I'm not like trying. It's like a good thing, because I don't get more as people are more successful. They pay and then they're done.
Yeah.
So, but it is really, really cool, because I feel like we're probably, your numbers are close, but we probably have like 350 to 400 active members. So
nice.
You're right though. There's 1,400 not. So you're 100% right. I just was saying, even being probably the higher percentage of active members of anything out there, there's still, whatever the math is, there's still 60% of people, 70% of people not taking action. So anyways,
Yep.
You were right. Your whole concept was very, very well spoken, in that even having it and people paying, there's still a very small percentage that take advantage of it. My goal is just to make that percentage as high as possible.
Yeah.
Because I just was saying, I've noticed, and this is something we can get into. It's very, very cool for me. What I've noticed is the more I worry about providing value and providing solutions, the more money I make, as opposed to chasing money. I had this conversation in 2022 that completely changed my life. I had two conversations with billionaires 6 months apart, and they said the exact same thing. They didn't know each other. They didn't even know they were talking to me. And I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I was starting to believe the Matrix. Like, is this the Matrix? Like, what is going on? This was so weird. There were two billionaires. One of them is like a billionaire hedge fund manager. The other one started Priceline.com and a few different things. And they said almost the exact same thing, and it changed my life. And I was like, these people are billionaires because they're special. They're not special because they're billionaires, if that makes sense. And they're like, money flows through society. They both said this. It's not good. It's not evil. And it goes towards those that provide solutions and those that actually try to help people. Like, most wealthy people are really, really nice. I know the internet wants you to think wealthy people are wicked and evil, but a majority of people are wealthy because they're good people. That's why they're wealthy. And they shifted my focus as I want to own all these businesses and have all these side hustles and have the streams of income coming in where I'm making so much money I don't know what to do with. Yes, I'll give to charity. Yes, I'll do that. Like, great. I want to make money for other people and me. And I was doing okay. But I had these conversations in 2022. And I started to shift my mindset, and I started to say, I want to provide solutions over money. I want to help people over make a profit. And I didn't really believe it right away. I said it enough. Eventually I believed it. And I'm telling you, like 6 months-ish into that, like, I wasn't worried about money. I don't check my bank account that often. And then when I do, it's like, I make more money. Not that I know what to do with, goodness gracious, I'm not there, but make a lot more money than I ever thought I would make, because I stopped chasing money. And that takes discipline. That takes effort. Like, think about, like, I want to be better at something, so I'm not going to do it. Like, that's really hard to do. That's the opposite of what logic talks about in most things. And as soon as I actually embraced it, it was like the waterfalls opened up. That's hence we didn't always charge 10K, but you can do the math at our students. And, so it's just wild where that comes in when you actually try to provide solutions that help people and give away as much as you can for free. And then if you want the implementation to the education, I'm here. If you just want the education, take it. If you want the education implementation, we're here for you when you need us, kind of thing. So anyways, didn't mean to go on a tangent. You just kind of sparked that as like the shift that really, really helped a lot of people and me. Like, I make more money too, but it's not really about that. That's just a byproduct of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so money flows through society, and it tends to flow towards the people that help other people. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, ultimately, like, you get paid to solve problems, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone gets paid to solve problem. Employees, they get paid to solve the time problem, because there's not enough time for the CEO to do every single task. And so they get paid with the time problem, but everyone gets paid to solve problems. And the more problems you solve, the more money you make. I do believe that. As a real estate investor, though, because I'm curious, right? Because now we're kind of getting into the education space, right? We're talking about education and you solving problems in the education space. And to me, it seems like it's pretty easy to understand problem solution in the education space, right? There's a lack of knowledge. And so you're providing a resource, you're providing a roadmap for them to kind of get to where they want to be. But let's talk about real estate investing for a second, right? So, like, what are the inherent problems that you're solving as an investor that have allowed you to make the kind of, and have this amount of success that you've been able to have, right? Like, what are the problems that you see that you have been able to solve?
Yeah. So I mean, it's huge. I didn't realize this, again, growing up thinking that real estate investors or people that have money just gobble up houses and they put cash down. They're already rich and they pay cash. I didn't realize the need for real estate investors. If there weren't such thing as landlords, which I know they get a bad name on social media, or at least my comment section say that they do, in my DMs. They think like we're taking away housing supply. Like there's a housing supply shortage and you're taking the housing supply shortage and you're profiting off of shelter. You're profiting off essential need. You're an evil person.
Yeah.
And I hope your family gets cancer. Direct quote from DMs from me. So not everybody understands that, but once you understand it, and it's just lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
It's just lack of understanding. So what I do, and here's where the solution goes in. I take a distressed house that somebody cannot live in. A bank will not fund a property that needs work. That's why there's hard money and private money and cash. Banks will not fund distressed properties. So if I don't buy that distressed property and fix it up and rent it to a family that wants and needs to rent, or sell it to a family that wants and needs a house, then that house is literally going to just continue to decay and all the houses around it are going to lose their value. That's the key thing is real estate investors, for the most part, there's shitty real estate investors, there's shitty landlords, of course.
Yep.
But in general, the good ones, we take distressed properties that are not a part of the supply and we fix them up and make them a part of the supply. So in fact, the person and persons, by the way, that have messaged me that before, they just don't understand it. They think I'm going on Zillow and paying cash for the house that lives next door to them that's going for sale on the market that's in perfect condition. There's no profit in it for me. That's a failing business model. So my business model is distressed properties that the bank won't fund. Nobody, I'm telling you, nobody who wants to buy their first house has the money to buy it cash, has the connections to rehab it, has the knowledge or time to make it livable and pass occupancy and code in these things. So that's the whole value solution that I provide. I take distressed assets that are out of the supply. I insert them into the supply by selling them to somebody who's going to fix them up, wholesaling it. Or I fix it up myself and keep it or sell it as a flip. So it's a very, very needed solution. And of course, there's these hedge funds and all these people that kind of do it the wrong way, or some people. So there's a yin and yang to everything. But in general, majority of people do it the right way. Without them, our supply would be even worse condition because home builders aren't building fast enough to get the supply caught up, as you probably know.
Yeah. And that's a great point, right? And this is something that I think is highly overlooked by, people that say, oh, flippers or whatever, right? Because there's all, just like anything, right, Sam? There's always going to be like the negative Nancys out there that always find the bad in the situation, the people, whatever. But a lot of these houses are really uninhabitable, right? Like they really just like would not be able to.
They really are.
Yeah.
You'd be shocked.
And you're bridging the gap because here's the thing, right? Like, and I can speak from experience here as a former real estate agent, 80 to 85% of the clients that I worked with right out the bat said that they needed something move-in ready.
Mm-hmm.
And of the 20-ish% or so that said that they'd be okay with something that wasn't turnkey, that they'd be willing to do the work, 90% of those people were lying. Or
most of what I buy is not even livable. Like there's like water's not on. It's not even habitable.
Exactly. Right. So right. Exactly. So like we're excluding those, right? Like we're excluding those from even the picture because like, yeah, those like foundational issues, structural issues, plumbing issues, electrical issues, things that like really truly, holes, like, oh my gosh, Sam, there is this one, I'm not even gonna go into it, but like I have seen, and I'm sure that you have too, right? Like I've seen some shit, dude, like these houses, crack houses, meth houses, like these things exist. And like people like you bring them back, restore them back to like what they were intended for, which is like, shelter. But it's interesting that you say that because, real estate investors, and when I say investor, we're really talking about flippers, right? People that flip houses or people that renovate properties, not commercial and all that stuff. We'll get into that in a second. But there really is a service that is provided there that people do not fully comprehend, because all they see is like, oh, this person made X amount of dollars, like, screw up. It's like, yeah, but you took on a lot of risk, a lot of responsibility, and provided a lot of value as a result of that.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way, a majority of the houses we buy we sit down with the home seller, and I used to, before I got the education, I ran the flipping company as far as like the marketing and sales go, right? So I was in houses and training people to be in houses and things. And what I taught people, what most of our successful buyers do is they go in the house and they show the seller like, hey, what do you think your house is worth fixed up? All right, now let's back in the numbers. What do you think this kitchen costs? 20 grand. No, it's not a 20 grand, probably 10 grand kit. Like we like be honest with them, show them the numbers, show them our profit margin, be like, this is what we'll make. We got some fees to pay. Like this is what we'll bring home. And they're like, yeah, like, you know, we understand it's a business, profit's not a bad word. Like they don't want us making 100 grand on $100,000 house. But if we show them where the profit actually will probably end up, and like maybe like things, we lose money on deals once a month, maybe every other month, like not, you know, we do a couple hundred transactions a year. So so we don't always even make money. So just showing them the transparency of what the numbers actually look like, and all the fees and all the risks that's involved. Like most people are completely fine with it, and they're selling their house or their parents' house. And they're the ones getting the check. Somebody on the side that's pissed about it, that's not even their money. They get more mad than somebody actually getting the money because they see the service we provide. They don't want to. My sister lives in New York. I live in Chicago. You know, we got a nephew in St. Louis. We're all going to meet one weekend. We got to get this house gone, get it cleaned out. We want to leave it how it is. You take all the stuff, you throw it away, you know, everything, and then just take it off our hands, be done with it. And you know, what's a fair cash offer? We show them the numbers. Here's what we can offer. Okay, good. Like that's what the service we provide is, and it's very needed.
100%. And just as a caveat here or an asterisk, and then we'll move on. But what Sam just shared there is a genius way of selling to anyone, really. It's just full total transparency, because a lot of times when you kind of play the don't look at the man behind the curtain selling strategy, usually ends up backfiring because they actually think that you're making way more than you really are. And so I actually have a buddy here who sells real estate in the area, but he has a contractor partner. And so they'll go in on deals 50-50 if they, and flip them if the seller just wants to, like a cash offer. And he'll show them like the difference. You're like, hey, like if we put it on the market, this is what we'll get probably, right? Like this is the range. But if we buy it, this is what, you know, we'll buy it for. And then this is what we, you know, project the ARV will be. And this is what project our renovation costs are going to be. And he has gotten so many flip opportunities over like the last year or so that he's been doing that. And he really just started doing that. But I'm like, dude, that's brilliant. And, you know, especially here in Silicon Valley, like you do a couple flips a year. you're good. Yeah. You're doing pretty well. So it's interesting that you guys also take the same approach. That leads me to my next question, which you mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to cover it. You said the last 50 homes that you've bought, you haven't even looked at. You don't even know what the address is. So how did you scale to the point where you got comfortable enough to trust someone else with that decision making? What is the process that you've used to kind of like, because I'm assuming you've trained them and everything, but like, I mean, gosh, that seems like a lot of responsibility to put on someone else's shoulder.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One of them is having like a good business partner. Like I said earlier, Lucas is my business partner. We've been friends since middle school, high school, college, bar fights, the whole 9 yard, right? So I have immense trust in him. And we decided about 2 years ago to divide and conquer. We both still own 50-50 of everything, but he focuses on the rental portfolio, CEO, and then the flipping company CEO. And both of those companies have very, very, very capable COOs. So Lucas is able to focus on top line visionary stuff for our rental portfolio and our flipping company. And one person reports to him from each company, and he kind of guides the light, and they do the day to day, and boom, he's able to kind of focus on the bigger stuff. I focus on education company, and the finance department actually rolls up to me. Surprisingly, I have a desire to kind of see the numbers and kind of help point the financial direction of our company, because we have a CFO, a COO, and a couple staff accountants. So we have a decent sized accounting team for all the transactions we do. So that's part of it, is having a partner that we divide and conquer. Like for a while, Luke's and I were going to all the meetings together. I'm like, what's the point? We're just wasting both of our times. I trust you, you trust me. So I don't need to go to this meeting. Like, we agree on most things. If you're super passionate about it, then freaking do it. I don't need to know about it. And he does the same with me. So that's the first part of it. I think the most important part is the right partner, the yin to your yang, that you have the core value and similar goals and paths to those goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of it is just over time. I mean, if I was involved in every little thing, I wouldn't be as involved in education and just seeing the bigger picture. And I always say there's three things that you leverage. Is you got to leverage other people's knowledge. We talked about this. You leverage other people's skills, which I get 400 hours of work done every day because I have 40 employees or whatever. They work 8 hours, 10 hours a day. So, and then other people's money, which is the real estate side of it. But anyways, I think just realizing that I could maybe be more involved and maybe we'd get a little better deal and maybe there'd be a little more equity and we could buy, 8 this year because I'm busy doing other things, or I could just be hands off and we could buy 40 this year. Like, I'll take that.
Yeah.
So kind of like the bigger picture side of it, I think.
I think that you figured out what, truthfully, I personally see as the greatest bottleneck. The vast majority of entrepreneurs and business people that I know, their biggest bottleneck is that they have no ability to delegate, or they lack the ability. They lack the ability really to let go, right, of that control. It's not even that they don't know how to delegate. It's just that they are mentally incapable of,
and physically, mentally and physically, yeah,
like incapable of letting go. And I like, just even saying that, I can think of like 5 people off the top of my head. I'm like, dude, you'd be doing so much more if you just could let go.
Tough. Yeah. It's tough though, man, because it's your baby. It's what you've done. But I think we're very intentional with it. Like we read, we read books all the time, and we have a leadership team. Me and Lucas, our COOs of each of our companies, our 3 companies, and our CFO. We meet every Monday morning at 8 a.m., like mastermind, go over like high level numbers and talk. And then we read books and we like read a chapter and talk about it, like kind of like a book club kind of thing. But a lot of the books we read are on things like you're talking about, Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's all about giving up control and having level 5. So we read these bigger mindset books together, and that gives me confidence in the team of my COO and the other COOs don't need to be involved in every decision because we've sat in rooms together and talked about what's priority and giving up control over this. And we've had these conversations and we've argued and we've butted heads and we've grown trust over time. And it's very intentional. Every single Monday, we just got done reading, we just got done reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, all about being a great leader and rumbling and then being vulnerable. Now we're reading Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, by T. Harv Eker. So we read these like mindset, like business books, and that just gives me more confidence, I guess I'm trying to say, in the team, because I see them growing emotionally and mentally, and I have more trust in them because I know we've had these discussions, and I trust that they're going to make the decision and they don't need me to help them because we've grown that trust together. Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? Because when you grow alongside of other people and you're building something together, it can be easy to trust, like a collaborator or a partner or something like that. A little bit more difficult when you hire an employee to kind of take over some stuff. And I'm wondering, for you guys, is there a process or like how have you been able to effectively train people to scale yourself out of certain tasks, of certain responsibilities in the day-to-day of the investment side of things, not the education side of things, specifically the investment side?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, there's 2 ways to do it. You probably like one, you might not like the other. I'll go with the one you might not like first.
Great.
We have hired a lot of our friends. A lot of people say stay away from, business and friends and family. The COO of our flipping company, our investing, flipping company, is Lucas's brother-in-law. He was the director of sales for a large liquor distributor in the St. Louis area that, did a few $100 million a year. So very, very talented individual. So it wasn't like nepotism. We tried to steal him over for years and finally got him. So we are big on, we will teach you the skills, or we will buy you the course, or we will hire the coach to teach you the skills. We want loyalty. We want you to have the same core values as us. If we've known these people for years, like of our 40 employees, probably 15 of them I met from 5 years old to 20 years old. They're high school buddies, they're college buddies. There's people that I've been through things with, these bar fights and all these playing sporting events. And like, there's that trust and loyalty that will run through a wall with us, not for us, but with us. And you can't really buy that. And that's really hard to predict when you're hiring off of an application and an interview. So that's the first thing we do. And it does provide some messy situations, but we set the expectations and we've had to move people around. Luckily, we have 3 companies, a few different roles. We've had to move people roles to get them on the right seat and the right bus. And that's been a little bit hairy, but we figured it out. And the other thing we do is we're very strict in our hiring. So I'll just quickly run you through our process. We have obviously an ad go out. We use our networking and our things to try to get people to fill applications. Application review, phone interview. Assuming you pass these in-person interview, after the first in-person interview, we send you a personality and skills assessment. They take that. We review those results. We have them in for a second interview and we talk about the holes in either their skill set or personality type for that specific role. There's no right or wrong answer, but an accounting skill set and personality type is not going to probably make the best salesperson and vice versa. So we say, here's what this says your skill set and or personality is. This is why it's a great fit for the role. This is our concerns. What do you say about that? Because this isn't an exact science. Not fight for, but give me the reasons why this says, like our video editor who we hired, one of our video editors had low attention to detail as one of the skills. He's like, no, when it comes to editing, I like make sure everything is good. And come to find out, Knucklehead has a crazy low attention to detail. There's misspelled words all the time in the stuff he edits. He knocks over cameras. He's the clumsiest person in the world. So we're working. It's incredibly talented kid. We're working with him on that stuff. It's fine, but the personality test was right. He lied. But anyways, it gives her a certain degree of confidence. And then we do like a coffee, dinner, something in person with them and their significant other if they have one, so we can see how they interact with waiters and waitresses and outside of it. And then we hire them. So that's how I think we're able to have, like, that's a big process for a small company, I feel like. And then our friends that don't have to go through as much of that they still go through the process, but a little bit quicker, making sure it's a good fit. We don't just hire anybody that's our friends. And then we're pretty strict in who we bring in, similar to bringing in tenants. You spend a little bit more time up front approving the best tenant, communicating the expectations, making sure they're a good fit, passing on some iffy ones, and they'll stay longer and you'll make more money. It's the exact same thing. Yeah. Hiring is having a good hiring process in place is definitely important. I would absolutely agree. And I can also add, like in my experience, working with friends, people that you know, is not a bad thing or a good thing. I will say that setting those expectations up front and finding a way to hold people accountable that you have a pre-existing relationship with can be a little bit more difficult, I have found. But maybe you don't have that problem, or maybe you have enough people outside of you in the business where it's like, hey, I'm not holding so-and-so accountable. This other person's holding them accountable. They're not friends, right? Or they don't have a pre-existing relationship. So I don't know how you guys kind of balance that or juggle that, but a little bit of both.
Yeah.
A little bit of both. There's layers. Like we said, Lucas and I each have a COO that reports to us, and that's it. So there are layers, but there's that expectation. There's that communication. We're not afraid to have tough conversations. Good friend, buddy that I've, known since we met in kindergarten on the playground field when I scored a soccer goal on his ass. But anyway, so we have these conversations like, hey, like, here's your clear expectations of your job. You're not meeting them. I love you. Let's figure out how we can meet them together. Do you need more help here? Do you need more checklists? Do you need more tracking? All right, the next 90 days, let's get you on an improvement plan. And every single day, report these things. Like, so that usually takes care of it because most people want to do well. And we pay them very well, so they don't want to go anywhere. But like, it's just having that clear conversation. Like, I don't hate you. I love you. Let's figure this out together just because you're falling short. And these numbers clearly show why you're falling short. So let's come up with a clear plan to get you out of this hole. We want to coach you up and not coach you out. And we've had a couple buddies that have left and gone back to their old job because it hadn't worked out. But guess what? We still see them and hang out with them and golf with them. It's no big deal. So Again, I think it's where it gets hairy is when you like don't talk about it. Or like you just like it's awkward and you don't bring up these things and they know that they're kind of screwing up and they're screwing up, but you don't talk about it and it's awkward and then it blows up and you yell at each other. Like just be open and honest and upfront. And that's the culture that we bring into all levels of the company.
Yeah. I love that. And honestly, open communication is very difficult. And I think that learning that skill as a business owner is super important. And it's one that I learned later than I should have, because I definitely had a few of those situations where like, hey, you just don't talk about it. And these should be things that you talk about all the time and kind of like air things out as they come up, as opposed to like letting them get larger or bigger than they need to be. And super critical, super important. Sam, we're running up on time here. And I feel like we could do like another one of these, honestly. Like do one or two more.
Have me back. We'll see how this one does. Make sure this one performs well, and then have me back. I want to earn my key.
All right, man. Sounds great. Well, let's shift gears to the future of real estate. I know that we spent a lot of time on building the company and education, and that was awesome. But for the investors that are listening to this right now, given how much experience you already have, what do you see, like what trends are you seeing on the horizon here in the real estate market over the next 5 to 10 years? And what are you personally doing to kind of position yourself for that?
Yeah, for sure. I got a lot I could get into here. And so we got a few minutes, but in general, a few things. One, I think real estate's gonna go up in value. I've done the research. Like it's never a bad investment to have. Like if you wait to buy the dip, you lose out on so much. The studies have been done. You lose out on so much potential. It is not worth it. So I've done the math. I've seen the charts. I don't manipulate numbers. I just look at the charts. Real estate doubles in value every 15 years, as I mentioned earlier. So if you buy now, it's going to be doubled in 15 years. I did the math from 1950 on. Bought a house in 1951, 1966, it doubled at least. Bought a house in 1974, 1989, it doubled. So every 15-year increment, it's doubled except 3. And it went up like 94, 92, and 88%. So it's a very good investment. Sometimes it's triple. So there's that side of it. Like it's always a good investment. So understand that the timing's never going to be perfect. If the timing's perfect, then the opportunity is gone. So just the timing is never going to be perfect. So just know that. I think predicting the future is like, it's a good thing to get into. And then as far as like trends and things, so don't have a crystal ball here, but I have a couple thoughts. Like interest rates, obviously, I told everyone last year they weren't going to go down this year. They're not going to bump them. I've talked to some economists about this, people in the administration, like they're not going to meaningfully dip interest rates until inflation is at 2. They're not going to do it at 2.8. They may drop it a quarter point, or they're not going to do it, at 2.6 even. They're not going to meaningfully drop rates until inflation gets to 2. And there's so many things going against that. Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a meaningful drop in the Fed's funds rate for a long time. That doesn't mean we can't get commercial rates in the 5s, low 6s. Right now they're in the 8s. That doesn't mean we can't get residential rates in the high 4s, mid 5s, but not the low 4s or 3s again. Like that ship has sailed. So you have to learn and adapt. I talk about this all the time. I can predict the future, and I create systems around that future. I know the U.S. is going to print more money no matter what. I know that the dollar value is going to go down no matter what. I know that real estate is going to go up no matter what in aggregate. So I create conditions around those things, and that's what my systems have been built around in my community. So knowing all that, there's things that you can do to combat higher interest rates. Midterm rentals are something I've been really heavy on over the past probably 6-8 months. Renting out to traveling nurses or to corporate leases or to insurance claims. Like people don't understand. There are about 200,000 available midterm rental units on Furnish Finders, which is the midterm space for midterm rentals. And there are about 2 million traveling nurses. And there are about 250,000 digital nomads. And so the supply and demand is the most whack you're ever going to see in any industry. So these 30, 60, 90-day, 120-day rentals to midterm to traveling nurses mainly are Gould Mine. You can get double the rent, 5 times the cash flow, and they work and they stay and they work and they sleep and they work and they sleep and they're gone, and they're incredible tenants to have, and there's very little issues with them. So I think midterms are a huge thing, and they're going to be. I feel like this is short-term rentals in like 2010, getting into midterm rentals now as a strategy. And then there's always these creative financing and sub-2 type of things you can do to take advantage of these rates. So interest rates are going to go down. Supply is not going to churn until that point because nobody's leaving a 3% interest rate for an 8% interest rate. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of transactions happening. I do think it'll loosen up a little bit. And then I also think, last prediction, then I'll let you roll, is I think that the government is going to be pretty involved in home ownership in the next 5 to 10 years. I think they're going to try to get rid of some hedge fund purchasing. I think they're going to offer incentive programs through HUD and through lobbying to give incentives for real estate investors. I know this by knowing some lobbyists in DC, by giving incentives for investors to sell their real estate assets and not have to pay capital gains. So that inserts into the supply by incentivizing new homeowners with grants and funds and lower interest rates and longer mortgages. So I think the government's going to be super involved in like first-time homeowner or home ownership in the 5 to 10 years through programs and incentives and things. And I think that's just going to provide more opportunity for investors and homeowners.
Yeah, there's
my take. Crystal ball, blurry.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, actually, those are some really interesting insights. Just to add a little bit to the midterm rental thing, there is a lot there that we're not going to have time to get into in this podcast, but like I would absolutely agree that there is something there. I think that the a couple things, the wear and tear and the overall overhead to upkeep a midterm rental versus short-term rental significantly lower, right? Significantly.
100%.
So your expenses are going to be lower. Meanwhile, you might not be capturing the highest rate possible like you could with STRs, but your occupancy sure is going to be a lot higher, right? Or theoretically, right? Could be a lot higher.
85% is average. You're right. 85% occupancy for midterm rentals is average. Short-term rentals is 50 and long-term rentals is 95. So you're spot on.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Just like in my head, just kind of applying like hotels to this, right? Like I would equate midterm rentals to extended stays, right? And extended stays have the best margins, and they typically, outperform, the limited service hotels significantly in terms of cash flows. So it's interesting that there's some parallels there, and the government thing. That's a great nugget, man. Well, listen, in traditional Gould Mine fashion, Sam, would love for you to leave our audience. You already dropped a bunch of them, but one final gold nugget.
All right. My final gold nugget would be to embrace failure. Failure is literally on the path to success. It's so simple that if you avoid failure, you avoid success. There's nobody that is any moderate level of success that hasn't failed multiple times. So if your goal is to not fail, then your goal is to not win. It's really that simple. So learn to embrace failure. Don't intentionally seek it out. But if you get up, it's not failure. It's a learning lesson. That's what learning is. Like when you do a math problem, you got it wrong. You get it right the next time. You just learn the right way to do it. It's not failure. It's learning. So many people I see wait for the perfect scenario, paralysis analysis, and then I'm never starting because they have a very deep-seated fear of screwing up and failing, whether it's their ego, whether it's their parents, whether it's insecurity, whatever it is. I have all of those things, but I'm not afraid to fail because I understand that if I want to be successful, I'm going to have to fail. There is no way around it. There's no path to it without it. So just know that and have that expectation. And I feel like you will be much more successful, much sooner and much happier, which is all really what it's all about anyway.
I love that. Sam, you've been awesome, man. So glad that you were able to make it. And I know that the audience definitely walked away with more than their fair share of nuggets on this one, man. Thank you so much.
Audience, like it, share it, promote it, give it ratings. And if we do enough of that, he'll have me back.
There we go, baby. There we go. Oh, yes. And all of your, if you want more information on Sam's course, all of that will be in the description box down below.
Yeah, just have them hit me up on Instagram. If they're interested in the course, don't go there. Talk to me first. Hit me on Instagram. Check out my podcast, my YouTube channel, see if you like it, and then chat with me about the mentorship. But just get in my social network first, and then we'll talk.
Love it. Awesome, Sam.